It was 22 to 24-year-old young woman's love.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, but I think probably everybody can relate to this.
Everyone remembers the name, Monica Lewinsky, the 22-year-old intern whose affair with President Bill Clinton turned into the biggest political scandal in American history.
He paid a lot of attention to me. He spent time sort of standing there and held my hand longer than he should have and gave what others have described as the full Bill Clinton. It feels as if you're the only person standing there.
A young woman destroyed by the spotlight, reduced to a punchline, forced into silence and exile. But what if I told you that image of the broken victim is completely wrong? This isn't the tragic Hollywood downfall story you've been fed for decades. This is the story Monica Lewinsky refused to let define her. And only now, at 52, is the full truth coming out. She didn't just survive the most public shaming of the modern era. She turned it into power, influence, and yes, serious money. The real bombshell? Monica Lewinsky's net worth today will absolutely shock you. Today we're going deep into the darkness she lived through. The years no one talked about. The battles were fought alone. And the extraordinary, almost unbelievable way she turned pain into purpose and shame into serious money. Stay with me, because the real story isn't what happened to her in the 90s. It's what she did with every single year after. Chapter 1. The Forbidden Affair. Monica Lewinsky was only 22 years old and just starting her internship at the White House when she got involved in a romance that would eventually stun the world. From 1995 to 1997, she and President Clinton met in secret 9 times, gave each other small but meaningful gifts like a hat pin and a copy of Leaves of Grass, and made 37 private phone calls, some of which were very personal and left Monica confused about her own feelings. It wasn't just about keeping things secret for Monica. It was love. She thought she was important to the most powerful man in the country. But the balance of power was quite hazardous. Clinton's frequent denials to aides, meticulous explanations to those around him, and subtle maneuvers all made things confusing. Monica often doubted her own sentiments, not sure if what she was going through was real or just the result of the stress of being with a man who could change her world in ways no one else could. It was clear that Monica's existence was taking a toll. Almost right away, friends noticed differences. She started to worry all the time, became anxious, and pulled away from others. Stress and sadness even made her lose weight, since she couldn't keep her cool under the pressure of a secret that was too huge for her young shoulders. What had begun as exciting moments of attention quickly turned into a tangled web of feelings, mixing excitement, terror, and secrecy into a daily reality she couldn't escape. The White House, on the other hand, kept up its typical political pace, entirely unaware of what was going on in the private world of the corridors and offices. Gifts, notes, and quiet phone calls were all signs of the difference in power between Monica's youth and inexperience and Clinton's great power. Every time they talked, there was a lot of tension, with love mixed with control and personal connection, overwhelmed by uneven authority. These secret meetings in corridors, offices, and late-night phone conversations looked insignificant at the time, but they were the pieces of a puzzle that would eventually become one of the most renowned political scandals in history. Monica's narrative, which was once private and personal, became a national spectacle. It changed her life forever and had a lasting effect on everyone involved. The way the facts came out made it worse. The secrecy, manipulation, and power imbalance grew quietly until every whispered discussion and stolen time became known to everyone. Monica's love, trust, and loyalty clashed with a world that wasn't ready to forgive or comprehend her circumstances. This put her in the limelight she never wanted. Then came the worst betrayal, the revelation that would convert private whispers into front-page news, secrets into scandal, and trust into a public trial of character. The next part shows how the world found out everything and how Monica had to deal with the fallout from a relationship based on lies, deceit, and unequal power. But the exposure was only the start. What happened when the world looked at Monica Lewinsky would stun even those who thought they knew everything that had happened. Chapter 2. How one betrayal blew up Monica's world. Monica's private thoughts suddenly became public. Linda Tripp, who worked with Monica at the Pentagon, had been secretly taping their chats for 20 hours. Monica's concerns, feelings, and secrets regarding the president were all recorded without her knowing. These tapes would be the spark that started one of the largest scandals in history. Things became worse when the renowned blue dress came out. DNA evidence showed that it had things in it that directly linked Monica to President Clinton. What people had been saying in the corridors and on the phone late at night was now clear proof. Monica's secret life couldn't stay hidden for the first time. Ken Starr's inquiry, which started with the Whitewater real estate case, grew to include claims of perjury and obstruction of justice. The scandal became worse very quickly. Monica wasn't just a teenage intern in a secret romance anymore. She was at the center of a national political crisis. Monica had to give her testimony under oath. She lied and made mistakes because she was scared. And in the end, she took an immunity deal to protect herself. There was a lot of legal pressure, and the effects went far beyond the courtroom. Her life, her reputation, and her credibility were all at stake. At the same moment, Clinton's presidency was in danger. The proof and Monica's testimony led to impeachment proceedings, which caused a lot of trouble at the White House. There was a lot of arguing among leaders, a lot of noise from the media, and a lot of disagreement among the population. What had started as private operations in covert offices was now the talk of the world. Linda Tripp's role became a topic of gossip in the midst of the commotion. Some people dubbed her a whistleblower, while others termed her an evil friend for compromising Monica's confidence. No matter what anyone thought, the tapes she covertly captured were the most important thing that helped her expose the affair. And Monica became the target of national shame. Every detail, from the private phone calls to the DNA evidence, was picked apart, talked about, and shown on TV. There wasn't much place for compassion or empathy in the coverage. Monica's life, which used to be normal and private, became a never-ending source of shame. Her friends and relatives could do nothing but watch as she was attacked in the press, on TV, and even in ordinary conversations. The incident didn't simply show that someone was having an affair. It also showed how quickly private blunders may turn into a public disaster. Monica was strong even amid the storm, though. She made it through lawsuits, harsh public scrutiny, and public shame. She tried to preserve some control over her life while dealing with the convoluted system of immunity bargains and testimonies. But the cost to him personally was huge. The whole country saw her lose her innocence, trust, and privacy. Monica believed things couldn't get any worse, but then the world's attention turned to her, and the scandal turned into a tempest that would change her life and the country forever. Chapter 3. The Public Humiliation. Once Monica Lewinsky's private story became public, the world didn't just gossip, it attacked. Late-night comedians turned her life into jokes. Newspapers ran headlines filled with ridicule, and talk shows dissected every moment of her private life. The young intern, once a bright, ambitious student, suddenly became a symbol of scandal and shame. People mocked her looks, her choices, even her emotions. She was no longer Monica. She was that girl from the White House, the target of endless ridicule. The pressure was unbearable. Behind the glamour of her youthful image, professional, cheerful, seemingly confident, Monica was struggling in silence. In interviews years later, she would admit that during this period, she felt hopeless and desperate. At one point, she confided, "I want to die." The words are shocking, especially considering the young woman in question was facing a tsunami of public humiliation while still trying to finish her education and maintain her dignity. Monica wasn't just facing jokes on TV or critical headlines. She was at the center of what we now call cyberbullying, though the internet was just beginning to explode. Emails, early online forums, and news comment sections all became spaces for cruelty. Every mistake, every rumor, was magnified 1,000 times. She became the patient zero of a kind of public shaming that no one had experienced on this scale before. Her life was analyzed, her past relationships exposed, and her personal choices debated, sometimes by people who didn't even know her. The isolation Monica felt was devastating. Friends and family tried to help, but the constant media attention made it nearly impossible to maintain a normal life. Every day brought fresh embarrassment, and the emotional toll was severe. She had to process a world that treated her like a villain rather than a human being who made mistakes. Even more painful, she carried private regrets that no one could see. A previous abortion from an earlier affair, personal insecurities, and the crushing realization that the public would never fully understand her side of the story. Her experiences also left long-term emotional scars. The weight of constant shaming, humiliation, and mistrust of the people around her pushed Monica toward despair. She became extremely cautious, learning the hard way that trust could be weaponized, secrets could be stolen, and reputation could be destroyed in a moment. The world had transformed her from a student into a symbol of scandal, and coping with that was nearly impossible for someone so young. Despite the overwhelming darkness, Monica began searching for ways to survive. She realized that her future didn't have to be dictated by shame or by those who had mocked her. Slowly, she started to rebuild her life, learning how to turn public attention into opportunity rather than despair. It was a long, painful process, but she began finding small victories in asserting control over her story and career. The contrast between her glamorous intern image and the private struggles she endured was stark. The world saw a young woman at the center of history, but behind the headlines was someone grappling with isolation, mental anguish, and the weight of public judgment. The humiliation wasn't just temporary. It left a mark that would shape how she viewed the media, public opinion, and even herself. Chapter 4. Post-Scandal Hustle. Monica Lewinsky's life changed in unusual ways after the controversy. People couldn't stop talking about her. She was no longer just a student or an intern. She was a household name. But being famous opened doors, and some of them were shockingly profitable. Monica's first step was to sign a deal with writer Andrew Morton to tell her story. The advance? $500,000 is a lot of money for a young woman who is just trying to get her life back on track. Monica's story was a means for her to tell her side of the story, clarify what truly happened, and yes, make some money. Then she had one of the most renowned interviews of her life. Barbara Walters, a big name in TV news, gave Monica a chance to talk to her one-on-one on the air. $1 million was the bargain. The teenage intern who had been made fun of and disgraced on talk shows was suddenly getting a lot of money to tell her story. People couldn't stop watching, and the media frenzy only got worse. People argued about her tale, picked apart every word she spoke, and made guesses about her life. Monica, on the other hand, was able to parlay some of her shame into a chance to make money and be heard. With this boost, Monica wanted to grow her profession beyond writing books and doing interviews. She signed endorsements, such as a deal with Jenny Craig, in the hopes of making money off of her fame. The notion seemed good, but it didn't work out. Sales were bad, critics didn't like the marketing, and the business quickly failed. Monica also started a brand of handbags, hoping to turn her fame into fashion success. Sadly, this didn't work either. The brand didn't catch on, products didn't sell, and marketing was hard. Monica's first earnings were huge, even though the failures were dismal. She had made more than $2 million in a relatively short amount of time from the book advance, TV interviews, and short-term engagements. This was a huge change for someone who had been humiliated and condemned all the time. But the public's response was varied. Some people said she was cashing in on the incident, as if it was wrong for her to survive and start again. Others respected her for taking advantage of chances, refusing to be a victim, and taking charge of her story. Monica was learning important things even if she was being judged. She knew that fame didn't last long, that people might turn against you, and that even big money could go away quickly if you weren't cautious with it. The money was exciting, but it also added stress. She felt like she was going through a tempest every time she appeared on TV, in an interview, or got an endorsement. During this time, Monica's story is a mix of success and caution. She had used her celebrity to become financially independent in the short term, proving to herself and the world that she could handle being in the spotlight. But she also learned that success based on controversy is fragile, and that finding opportunities in the public eye was a risky business. The money, however, went away faster than it came, leaving Monica with the next task: to establish a life that could last beyond the scandal and the press. Chapter 5. The Fortune That Vanished. They say money can't buy happiness, but for Monica Lewinsky, it couldn't even buy security. After her whirlwind post-scandal deals, $500,000 for a book, $1 million for a high-profile interview, Monica's fortune didn't just shrink, it vanished. And when it disappeared, the world she tried to rebuild suddenly turned cold, confusing, and cruel. The first hit came from the law. Monica's legal bills were massive. She had to pay nearly $850,000 in fees to her lawyers, including the famous attorney who helped navigate the Ginsburg settlement. Every dollar she earned from books, interviews, and appearances seemed to vanish into a black hole of legal paperwork and court deadlines. The young woman who once stood in front of cameras, smiling through the chaos, was now weighed down by something far heavier: financial ruin and public scrutiny. But Monica didn't stop moving. Even in the shadow of bankruptcy and relentless gossip, she sought refuge in education. In 2005, she enrolled at the London School of Economics, pursuing a master's degree that would give her a new sense of purpose. She moved to London, far from the unrelenting headlines in the United States, leaving behind the country that had watched her every misstep. For a time, she became a student, an exile, a quiet observer of life instead of its unwilling star. Life in London offered her peace, but it also came with struggles. Attempts to re-enter the spotlight were short-lived. A reality TV show that could have boosted her profile never took off. A brief foray into entrepreneurship, selling handmade knitting and fashion accessories, was quietly shelved. Every attempt at rebuilding her fortune was met with obstacles. Some whispered that her finances were cursed, a cruel consequence of the scandal that had marked her name forever. The money she had fought to earn, the deals that once seemed like salvation, disappeared faster than anyone could explain. Yet even in these setbacks, Monica's story wasn't about defeat. It was about survival. She had faced the most humiliating public ordeal of a generation and lived through it. She had learned what it meant to be vilified, to be shamed, and to have every choice questioned. In London, removed from the cameras, she began a quiet transformation. She studied, reflected, and slowly pieced together a life that wasn't dictated by her past mistakes or by the world's judgments. The contrast was stark. From millionaire windfalls to vanished fortune, from global headlines to a quiet student life, Monica's journey felt almost unreal. And yet, beneath the losses, beneath the rumors and failed business attempts, something stronger was forming. The woman who had been public enemy number one was no longer defined by a scandal. She was quietly, deliberately, building the foundation for a future on her own terms. And just when it seemed that all hope was lost, Monica began to take her first real steps toward redemption. A journey that would eventually reshape not just her life, but how the world would remember her. The money was gone. The fame was gone. But from the ashes of her vanished fortune, a new Monica Lewinsky was about to emerge, stronger, wiser, and ready to reclaim her story. But just when the world thought Monica had nothing left, a quiet revolution was brewing, one that would redefine her life, her voice, and the power of survival. Chapter 6. From Silent Shame to Speaking Out. The whole world had laughed at, mocked, and judged Monica Lewinsky for years. People acted like she was merely a controversy and not a genuine person. But in 2014, she chose to speak up for herself. She authored a strong piece for Vanity Fair. She told her story truthfully in it. She talked about how being publicly shamed changed her life, her mental health, and how she saw herself. She didn't blame herself. She blamed the media and the individuals who made her life a circus. Everyone was interested in the essay. Monica made it clear that the problem wasn't just her tale. It was how society treated people who were embarrassed online or in the press. She said that making someone feel bad about themselves can ruin their confidence, friendships, and future. Her statements were forceful, clear, and easy to grasp. People began to perceive Monica as a real person for the first time, not just a subject in the news. She went even further in 2015. Monica spoke at a TED event called The Price of Shame. So far, more than 22 million people have seen it. She talked about what it's like to be bullied in front of a lot of people. She talked about how social media may propagate bad behavior faster than before. She also illustrated that humiliating someone doesn't simply damage them. It hurts everyone around them, too. She didn't talk about blaming herself or going over the scandal again. It was about helping people see that being humiliated in public is wrong and serious. After that, Monica's main goal was to help other people. She spoke at schools, businesses, and events, and established campaigns against bullying. She wanted to show people how to be kind and respectful to others. She became a symbol of strength and survival. She made a great difference in the world, even if her past was hard. It wasn't easy for Monica to come back. People still talked about the scandal, and some weren't sure what she wanted. But she wouldn't let that stop her. She was in charge of her story in every essay, every speech, and every campaign. She was no longer the girl everyone made fun of. She was a powerful lady who used her life to teach others. Monica converted her humiliation into power by speaking out. She showed that you can make a difference by standing up for what you believe in, even when the world is nasty. She went from being condemned and humiliated to being a well-respected advocate for kindness, empathy, and stopping bullying. People assumed Monica's narrative was over, but a fresh chapter would start, revealing that her fight and her voice were far from over. Chapter 7: 2025 Podcast and Untapped Recovery. By 2025, Monica Lewinsky had started a new chapter in her life. She returned to the public eye with a podcast that focused on people who had been shamed, bullied, or caught in scandals. On her show, Monica spoke with survivors from all walks of life. Some had been in the news, while others faced online harassment or workplace bullying. Each episode explored how these people survived, how they rebuilt their lives, and what lessons they had learned. Monica wasn't just asking questions. She shared her own experiences as someone who had been humiliated on a global scale. She talked about the emotional toll, the anxiety, and the isolation that come with public shaming. Listeners connected with her honesty. Many said it was the first time they had heard someone speak so openly about the real effects of being judged and bullied. Through these conversations, Monica turned her own past pain into a way to help others. The podcast also became a source of income. Companies sponsored episodes. Listeners subscribed for extra content, and Monica offered special interviews or behind-the-scenes episodes for supporters. By 2025, these efforts brought in over $200,000 a year from speaking, consulting, and production-related work. This was money she earned on her own terms, without the judgment or stigma of her past. It gave her financial independence and allowed her to keep producing content that mattered to her. But the real success of the podcast wasn't just financial. It was the influence she had. Monica was helping people understand that public shaming could be dangerous and that recovery was possible. She became a teacher and an advocate at the same time, turning her story into guidance for others. People began to see her not as a scandal, but as someone who had survived, learned, and found purpose. The podcast also allowed Monica to experiment with new ways of reaching audiences. She explored interviews with activists, writers, and mental health professionals, creating episodes that educated listeners about cyberbullying, media ethics, and resilience. Each episode highlighted practical strategies for coping and showed that recovery could be achieved with support, self-reflection, and persistence. Her work hinted at future growth. Sponsorships could increase, more exclusive content could be offered, and live events or speaking tours could expand her reach. Monica had found a niche where she could earn money while continuing her advocacy. For someone who had once faced public ruin, this was a major achievement. Monica's 2025 podcast marked a turning point. It was a way for her to take control of her story, rebuild her reputation, and create a stable, purposeful life. At the same time, it opened opportunities for future income, influence, and advocacy that had never been tapped before. Chapter 8: Life at 52. By the time Monica Lewinsky turned 52, her life looked very different from the chaos of the 1990s. She was single and had no children, living on her own terms. Some people might gossip about that, wondering why she never married or started a family. But for Monica, it wasn't about fitting anyone else's expectations. She had learned to focus on her own goals and her own well-being. One of her biggest accomplishments in recent years was her work in television. Monica became a producer for Impeachment, American Crime Story, a series that revisited the events she had lived through. She was involved in shaping the story, helping writers, directors, and actors understand the human side of the scandal. Her role wasn't just technical, it was personal. She made sure the series showed how complex people's lives could be when caught in public scrutiny, not just the scandal itself. At the same time, Monica continued her activism. She spoke openly about bullying, online harassment, and the dangers of public shaming. Through her essays, talks, and public appearances, she tried to teach people how to protect themselves and how to respond if they became targets. Her message was simple but powerful. Mistakes don't define a person, and everyone deserves a chance to rebuild their life. Despite the successes, the contrast between her past trauma and present life was stark. She had once faced worldwide humiliation and intense media judgment. She had struggled with anxiety, depression, and public gossip that made daily life feel impossible. Now, she had reclaimed her voice and her reputation. She could use her experiences to educate, inspire, and even entertain, showing that recovery was possible. Her personal life remained private. Monica had relationships over the years, but she had never married. Some people speculated about why, sometimes spreading rumors. But Monica didn't let gossip control her choices. She prioritized stability, independence, and meaningful work. In a way, that decision reflected her resilience. She had survived the worst kind of public judgment and learned to focus on what truly mattered, her purpose, and her own growth. By 52, Monica had built a life that balanced career, activism, and personal reflection. She was producing major projects, earning income from speaking and media work, and connecting with people who needed guidance or inspiration. She wasn't defined by her past anymore. She was shaping her present and preparing for the future. Monica's journey showed that even after intense public shaming, someone could find empowerment, independence, and fulfillment. Her story wasn't just about surviving a scandal. It was about using that experience to make a difference and build a life on her own terms. Monica Lewinsky's net worth today is estimated between $1.5 and $2 million. Much of it comes from speaking fees, where she shares her experiences on bullying, media pressure, and resilience. She also earns from residuals linked to past media appearances and her involvement in Impeachment, American Crime Story. Investments in small projects and her advocacy work contribute to her income as well. While not a huge fortune by celebrity standards, it's significant considering everything she went through. Monica's wealth reflects years of rebuilding her life, turning past pain into opportunities for work, learning, and helping others. Monica Lewinsky's net worth at 52 is surprising, showing the reality behind the headlines. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay updated on more shocking stories and untold truths from the lives you thought you knew.